Hi everyone. Today we are talking about car loans. This is a really big topic. It's super important, and it's the last topic in this unit. So that's kind of exciting. We're almost done vehicle finance. Next, we're going to do home finance, which you'll see that there's a lot of things in common. For example, how we figure out your loan payment is going to be very similar to how we figure out your mortgage payment next unit. So we're going to use that tool more than once, which is nice. Alrighty, so a lot of people get car loans because a lot of people don't have a ton of money just sitting around ready to be spent. So, or they have other uses for that money. Car loans are great because it allows you to buy a car right now rather than waiting 5 years until you have it all saved up, because a lot of people need a car right now. Like, let's say your family car breaks down this moment and you have 3 little siblings and your parents both work. Well, you probably need a car, especially living in Winnipeg where our transit isn't great, right? So a lot of people go this route, and you have some choices when you go to get a loan. It's a good idea to do a little bit of research before you walk into the dealership and you're ready to sign some papers. Reminder that a car loan is a really big commitment. It's not something you go into lightly, and it's something you have to make sure that you can afford. So on the very first day of this unit, we talked about the 40% rule, where your monthly loan payment should never be more than 40% of your income. And that's just kind of a rule of thumb to help you to help guide you so that you're not getting more loans than you can really afford. So when you go into a bank or you go into the dealership and you talk to the finance person, they will look at your credit, they will look at how much money you make, and they will say, whoa, I'm not willing to loan you this much, you don't make enough, or yeah, we can totally give you a loan for this. Now, reminder that banks and the financial people at dealerships, they want to take your money. So they're not always looking out in your best interest, right? Because they want to make money off of you. So sometimes places will give you loans even though maybe they shouldn't. And that's kind of the reason for the housing market crash in the States. Well, one of them is that a lot of people who couldn't afford loans got really big loans, and then they couldn't afford to pay them back, and then everyone's out a bunch of money. It's not a good situation to be in. So before you start shopping for a car, it's a good idea to talk to someone who's good with money, like your parents maybe, or your bank, and then take their advice with a grain of salt. And if they say you can afford $500 a month, maybe you make sure you're not going at $490 a month, right? You're going below that, just to make sure that if anything were to happen, you'd be able to pay it back. And this definitely comes into play in times like right now where we're in a pandemic. A lot of people are laid off right now, right? And even though there's like government assistance programs, some people are finding that you're not making enough money to cover your bills. So if you had gotten that loan for $500 that you could barely afford, and then you got laid off, or maybe your hours got reduced, or something really bad happened, like you couldn't work for a while, or you all of a sudden become pregnant, like me. That wasn't all of a sudden, but you want to make sure that you can still pay back those loans. Not paying back your loan is not a great place to be, because if you miss one payment, okay, they might forgive you. The second payment, okay, you definitely have to pay a fee. Few more payments after that, they're going to take the car back from you. They're going to impound that car. So they're going to take it because you haven't been paying your payments. And that's not a fun place to be, because now you're out of car, right? And then your credit is kind of shot. So that's not a place we want to be. We want to make sure that we can afford our loans. So that's part of the reason why we learn these topics in this course, is that we want you to walk away from this course being financially literate people, where you don't have to have all the answers, but you need to know where to go to find answers, and you need to know a general idea of what you can afford and how to figure out costs before the financial person tells you. So when I was buying my house, maybe this is me, I am the person that I am a math teacher. I figured out my monthly mortgage payment before the bank did. And so then when they told me the payment, I said, yeah, okay, that's pretty much what I calculated. That's what I was expecting. I believe that I can afford that. Okay, anyway, let's try this. So, Joel wishes to purchase a used car from a dealership. Remember, if it's used but from a dealership, you have to pay both taxes. And that is on your formula sheet. This car is going to cost $12,500 after taxes. It's kind of weird wording right there. Let's see. Let's read this again. Joel wishes to purchase a used car from a dealership for $12,500 after taxes. He decides to get a personal loan from his bank. Okay, I'm just going to take this out because I think that confuses it a little bit here. So let's pretend that's not there. He decides to get a personal loan from the bank. Calculate the total cost to purchase this car. Okay, well, it was $12,500. We need both taxes on it, so I'm going to multiply by 1.12. Both taxes are 12%. I'm just doing this in one step here. I need to pay the dealership $14,000, where most of it goes to the dealership and a little bit goes towards the government. Now, with a car loan, we often, like most often, have to pay a down payment. And the down payment is a couple $1,000s, maybe if it's a more expensive car, maybe more $1,000. And it's a payment you pay today before you walk away with that car, just as a way of saying, I have money and I will pay you back the rest of it. It's a kind of a guarantee for them. So that way they get some money out of you. They're not totally out if you stop making your payments and they can't get the car back from you. Typically, people with less credit are going to have to pay more in down payment because remember, credit score is kind of a way of judging your reliability in terms of payments. So if you are like a millionaire and your credit score is amazing because you get a couple loans and you pay them back right away because you got all this money all the time and you're really, really good with your money, they might say, yeah, you don't need a down payment because we can trust you. We can see that we can trust you. If you, an 18-year-old, goes in to buy a car, they might say, you don't really have a credit rating here. You don't have much credit because you've never had a credit card or a loan or anything. So we want you to pay a bigger down payment so that we can see that we can trust you. It's a bit of an insurance policy against you not paying your loan payments. So it's just a way of them saying, okay, do you have some money? Can you put that down right now just so we can trust you? So a down payment is a payment we make right at the beginning. So you make a payment of $2,750 right away. And then once you pay them, you owe them a little bit less, right? So I needed a loan for $14,000, but I gave them $2,750 right away. So really, I only need a loan for $11,250 because I already paid some of it. I only owe them this much now. So I need to borrow this much from the bank. All right, now we are going to actually find the monthly payment. If you take Applied, you'll notice we're going to do this in a different way. In this course, because we don't have a graphing calculator, we're going to use, flipping the page here, just on the next side, we're going to use the monthly vehicle loan payment chart. Now, on your final exam, they're just going to give you the number off the chart. They're just going to say, it's 29.86, and you just go ahead and use it. For our purposes, because I'm a little too lazy to write them all out for you, we're going to continue using the chart. I want to put a little formula down here, because it's really good to have it on the sheet right here. Monthly loan payment equals, you take how much you're getting for your loan, like how much you need to borrow, you divide it by 1,000, and then you multiply by the number from the chart. Okay, so you take how much you borrow, divide by 1,000, oh, there's my email, and you multiply by whatever number you get off of here. And notice, the reason why we divide by 1,000 is because it says for $1,000 borrowed. So let's say I only borrow $1,000 at 4% interest for 1 year. This is how much I have to pay every month for 1 year. If I get it for 2 years, about half, right? Because it's, twice as much time. And then about half again. You'll notice that it's more than half because the longer you have a loan for, the more interest you pay. All right, so let's try this. I'm just going to write out that formula again. Loan payment equals loan amount divided by 1,000 times by a number from chart. Now, when you go to the bank, they're not going to whip out a chart, right? They've got a computer system that they use, but our chart is based off their computer system. So our loan amount, which great, we just calculated, we have to borrow $11,250, divide that by 1,000, and multiply from the number from the chart. So this is where we need to figure out what the terms are of this loan. They said 7.5% over 4 years. So flipping back to that chart, 7.5% over 4 years, that is the number from the chart right there, 24.18. 24.18. So I can kind of do this in a few different orders. I usually do this, divide by 1,000, and then I multiply by the number over here, but it doesn't actually matter. $272.03 every month I have to pay back. Now this chart only allows us to do monthly payments. It's very specific like that. We can't do bi-weekly or weekly payments using this chart. You'd have to get a different chart for that. But we're just going to stick to monthly, okay? Now I want to talk about choices for your loan real quick. When you pick out the car, you're like, yeah, that's the car I want. I love it. It's perfect. When you go and sit down and have this conversation, you have a choice of how long you want to pay this car off over. I gave you the choice on this chart for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Sometimes they offer 6, 7 years. Why do you think it's a bad idea to get a loan for 7 years? How many cars do you know are still in great shape after 7 years? Not that many. So let's say you buy a car today, it's 2020, you have it for 7 years, your life is totally different in 7 years, but you're still making payments on this car you bought in 2020. And maybe this car is no longer a good car because it's been through a lot. Maybe you've been driving a lot, going to school and going to work and stuff. This car is not really holding up anymore. Most people want to buy a new car before 7 years is up. Don't get me wrong, some cars are troopers and like do great and you take great care of it and stuff, and then awesome. But most cars don't last that long, or you want to change it before then. So what you'd have to do is you'd have to pay out the rest of the loan and then you could sell it or whatever. So I typically suggest you stay within 5 years, and even 5 years is pushing a little bit, because cars just don't last that long anymore. Now the other reason is that if we were to calculate the total cost of all of these things, the longer you keep a loan, the more interest you have to pay. So if the interest rate is pretty low, like it's even below 4%, it's maybe not that giant of a difference. But if the interest rate is 7-8%, when you have it for longer, you pay way more in interest. So you think to yourself, oh, 5 years, the payment is pretty small. Like, look at the difference between monthly payment here for $1,000 compared to for 1 year. It's a lot less, but over time you pay a lot more by doing the longer option. Now, of course, you have to be reasonable, because if you can't afford to pay it off over 1 year, you can't. If you can't afford it, you can't afford it. What are you going to do? But we're not going to choose 7-year loans because that's just too long. We're going to choose a cheaper car in that case, okay? All right, so calculate the total paid for the loan. If I pay that every month for 4 years, how much am I paying off? Well, 272.03. How many months are in a year? Times 12. So that would be for 1 year if I calculated that right now. But I'm doing this for 4 years. So I need to multiply by 4 years. I'm just going to add that in. That's why that is 4 years. I did this, I got $13,057.44. This is how much you need to pay. This is how much you need to pay back the loan. Now we have to be careful here because that's not all you paid in total, right? You borrowed $11,000 and you had to pay back $13,000. So interest is about $2,000, right? And interest is just a fee you're paying to the bank. The bank isn't really your friend, right? I mean, sometimes they are, but in loans, not really. They don't just give you money for nothing. So when you say, hey, can you do me a favor and loan me $11,000? They say, sure, no problem. But when you pay it back, you're going to have to pay me back more money because I'm not just like your buddy or your mom. I want to make money off of this transaction. So banks make money by charging interest, and this difference, how much more you're paying, that's them making money off of you. Calculate the total cost of the car, including his down payment. Alrighty. Well, we paid this to pay the loan back. So $13,057 plus that down payment. We paid $15,807.44 in total for this car. That's a lot more than the $12,500 that was the sticker price of the car, right? If I had cash this day, I would have paid $14,000, but since I did not have cash that day, I paid almost $2,000 more. That's just kind of the price of business, right? Unfortunately. Last one here, calculate the amount of interest paid. Well, if I could have paid cash, I would have paid this much, but I didn't, so I paid this much. So how much more we paid, that's going to be our interest. So total cost of loan. There are other sets of numbers you could use instead of these ones, but this is what we'll do right here. Total cost of loan minus the total cost of car, because you're going to have to pay taxes anyway, right? That has nothing to do with the loan. So we paid $15,807.44 compared to the $14,000 that you actually have to pay to get the car. $1,807.44, so almost $2,000 in interest. Now I can totally think of a lot of different ways to spend $2,000, $1,800. I could buy myself really expensive purses, or even a really cheap car for $1,800, right? I could do a lot of things with $1,800, but if I don't have cash to begin with, it's kind of the price I just have to pay because I couldn't afford it. So best case scenario, I have lots of money to just spend on stuff. That's just not how most people's lives work. So if you do have to get a loan, which is reasonable, it's totally a fine thing to have to do to get a loan, but you make sure it's a loan that you can pay back. You make sure it's a reasonable amount that you can pay back every month. You make sure that you're not getting a loan for 7 years, because that's just too long to have a car for, too long to have car payments for. And you make sure that it's a car that's going to be reliable for you and suit your needs. So if you have 6 kids and you try to buy a little convertible, it's probably not going to work out well for you. You're probably going to have to switch out your car soon, right? I'm pregnant and I'm looking to buy a new car for my husband's car. We're going to have to get him maybe a small SUV, because he's got this tiny car right now. It's just not going to fit all the kid crap we're going to have. And we're going to make sure that this is a car that gets really good reviews, and it's going to last us a long time. And also be built for winter, right? Because I don't want to buy like a Corvette, which I won't be able to drive all winter. That's not going to work out for me here in Winnipeg. So anyway, happy last topic in vehicle finance. We're done now. So take a look at the practice for this and give it a shot. And have a good night.